What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Bree Talks MMA. If Oliveira loses, yeah, I'd rather see him fight somebody like Max Holloway if Max Holloway wants to move up to light. Because think about it, Max Holloway's ran through the entire featherweight division. The only guy he can't seem to crack the code on is Volkanovski. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We know what you're saying, Brian Battle. We know what you're saying after that performance. Man, what a fun card. Unfortunate ending to the main event, but overall, I thought it was a great card. So let's get into it. Unfortunately, yeah, Gamrot versus Fiziev, which I was so excited about this fight too. I was so excited about it, and it ended in an injury. It looks like Fiziev might have torn his ACL or something like that. He threw a kick, and Gamrot caught it with his elbow, and it hit, I guess, in the right spot, and then ended up... you could see Fiziev's knee just kind of like pop. So it looked really painful, and yeah, no fun. And it sucks because it looked like it was going to be a great fight. And it was looking like, to me, I don't know, Fiziev looked really good in that first round. I don't know. And I don't know who I consider winning the first round. It's a 5-round fight, so it doesn't really matter anyways. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of thought Fiziev was looking good. I thought his takedown defense looked really good. His striking, he landed a really nice combination early in the round. So I don't know. It was a fun fight, and it ended prematurely. So not the way that Gamrot wanted to win, I'm sure. But he's going to take the win. I mean, a win's a win. He won the fight. He won the fight, guys. Yeah, that's not exactly how he wanted to, but he still won the fight, so you got to give it to him. Yeah, so there's not really much to talk about with the main event because it was only basically one round. 1.5 rounds, I guess. So there's not really a whole lot to talk about with that, and it didn't really give us a lot, you know? We don't really have much to work with still, which is really unfortunate. It would have been better if it went all 5 rounds or at least 4 rounds, so we could at least see kind of how those two stack up against each other. But with only 1.5 rounds to base it off of, yeah, man, that's frustrating. I really would like to see that fight again, a rematch. I think it'd be awesome, but I think Fiziev's probably going to be out for a little while, probably about a year. Man, that's rough. So, rematch, I don't know if that's in the cards anytime soon. I think Gamrot is going to probably fight somebody else next. And this is honestly worst case scenario for the lightweight division right now, because half of the lightweight top 15 trains at American Top Team, and Gamrot trains at American Top Team. And I didn't realize how much he trains with Grant Dawson, because looking at kind of the rankings and the upcoming fights, Grant Dawson, if he didn't train with Gamrot, my God, that would be great. God, that'd be a great fight. But he does, and they're not going to fight each other unless it's for a title. Gamrot was talking about that in the press conference, and he said that he wasn't going to be willing to train or to compete against any of his teammates unless it's for a title. So, which makes sense. That's fair. I totally get that. That's his team. So, yeah. So what's next for Gamrot? Where does he go from here? Obviously, Fiziev, we know what's next for him. He's got to recover and get his knee straightened out. So that's what's next for him. But for Gamrot, yeah, he called out Charles Oliveira, or I guess he didn't really call him out necessarily, because it's Oliveira he has to fight Islam in a couple weeks. So it's not really, I guess, a call out necessarily. I think it's more saying if Oliveira loses, I want to fight Oliveira. Because if Oliveira wins against Islam, then there's going to be a trilogy. Or I would imagine Volkanovski moves up and fights Oliveira. Or, you know, maybe somebody else. Maybe Justin Gaethje gets another crack at the title. I don't know. I don't think that's very likely. But, yeah, it's interesting. There's several matchups you could make. Not a lot of great ones just because of all the American top team. And Dave, I was on the post show with Dave Van Auken and Fight Bananas. And Dave was talking about that, how there's just so many guys in that division, especially in the top 10, top 5 that train at American top team, that really makes it difficult to find a good matchup for Gamrot. Oliveira, I feel like, is a little too high in the rankings for him right now. And then I feel like the other options are just too low in the rankings also. So, yeah, I don't know. Dave brought up the idea of Dan Hooker and Michael Chandler. I don't hate those options. If Conor doesn't want to fight, like if he doesn't end up fighting, which does anybody know if that fight really is going to happen? Because I don't know. The thing is, if you replace Conor with Gamrot, I mean, the pay-per-view buys just disintegrate. Like, nobody's going to buy that pay-per-view. They would have to make that a co-main event and find another fight for the main event. They wouldn't be able to make that a main event, I don't think. Because it's not a title fight. You know, the biggest draw of that fight was Conor and the Ultimate Fighter thing, and, you know, which I think was a huge flop by the UFC, honestly. I think the Ultimate Fighter, Conor versus Chandler, was just a huge flop, honestly. I think they could have found somebody else better. I mean, shoot, they could have put Oliveira as a coach. They could have put Gamrot as a coach. They could have put Gaethje, anybody. You would think having Conor on the show would bring a whole lot of views, but, you know, when Conor isn't Conor anymore, it doesn't really work. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think the Chandler fight is going to happen unless Michael Chandler fights Conor, and then, I don't know. I just don't see that happening. But the Hooker fight, that actually does make sense to me. Just because it's like, yeah, when you look at the rankings and you look at who trains an American top team, yeah, it's all over the place. So I guess that's the options, you know, Dan Hooker, or Charles Oliveira if he loses to Islam. I don't really see a whole lot of other options. I mean, I guess if Bobby Green beats Grant Dawson, that's kind of a weird fight, though. I don't know if I like that fight. Gamrot versus Bobby Green. That just doesn't make sense. I don't know, man. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Leave it in the comments. Who do you think Gamrot should fight next? I think the one that makes the most sense to me is Dan Hooker, honestly. I think that makes the most sense to me. I know Gamrot really wants that Oliveira fight, but yeah, I just don't see that happening. I would actually think it's more likely that if Oliveira loses, which I'm leaning on the Islam side on that fight, I'm leaning toward Islam winning that rematch. Of course, you can't ever count Oliveira out. But I think Islam will win that. So if Oliveira loses, I think it would be more likely that somebody like Max Holloway would fight Oliveira, or Gaethje would fight rematch Oliveira than Gamrot. I don't think Gamrot is going to get that fight, just because it's like, yeah, he won the fight technically, but he didn't win the fight in a way that gets you the number one contender, you know? Like, to me, that's a little bit of a reach. So I think if he would have actually beat Fiziev like TKO, like knockout, something like that without the injury, then I would say, yeah, of course, Oliveira makes sense. But yeah, just the way the fight played out, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. Yeah, I think I'd rather see Gamrot fight somebody like Dan Hooker and then go from there. You know, I just, yeah. He could rematch Dariush, but that was a year ago they fought. So I don't know. I do kind of like that fight. I do kind of like the idea of them rematching, but I think that, I don't know, I think Dariush probably wins that one again. But I don't know. I mean, Oliveira made it look easy against Dariush, so who knows? Maybe Gamrot would have a new game plan, new path to victory there, watching that Oliveira fight. So I don't know. I think Dan Hooker probably makes the most sense. The Oliveira fight, just to me, yeah, I think if Oliveira loses, yeah, I'd rather see him fight somebody like Max Holloway if Max Holloway wants to move up to light. Because think about it, Max Holloway's ran through the entire featherweight division. The only guy he can't seem to crack the code on is Volkanovski. And I don't think the fourth fight is really justified unless Max Holloway does something crazy, like goes up and fights Oliveira. And then who knows, maybe Max Holloway and Volkanovski rematch at lightweight. Who knows? MMA is crazy, okay? Anything can happen. Yeah, but that's my thoughts on that. So we'll see what happens. But I think the rematch at some point needs to happen between Gamrot and Fiziev, because that was just too great of a fight for them not to rematch. But anyways, moving on to the co-main event. Bryce Mitchell versus Dan Ige. What a freaking fun fight this was. Oh my God. Grappling, striking. Gosh, we had a little bit of everything. I thought Bryce Mitchell won the fight. I know there's a lot of mixed scorecards out there. I scored it. Bryce Mitchell won the first round. I gave the second round to Dan Ige, and I gave the third round to Bryce Mitchell. And the reason I gave the first round to Bryce was because I didn't feel like Dan did a ton in that round compared to the second round. I thought he did a lot in the second round, and I thought that kind of swayed the scorecards for Dan for the second round for me. And I'm not a judge, so my opinion doesn't really matter, but I'm just telling you what I thought. But the first round, I thought that Bryce stole the round kind of towards the end. When he was throwing some ground and pound, he, got some control time. Yeah, I thought he did a little bit more damage in that round, plus the control time, plus the takedown. Yeah. And then in the second round, Dan Ige ended up actually getting on top. So he had a lot of great moments in the second round. Bryce had a great second round too, later in the round. But I still thought that round belonged to Dan Ige just for the damage that he did. And I know he kind of opened it up in the first round, but he really did that damage in the second round. So that's why I scored it that way. And then I thought the third round was pretty clear for Bryce. So yeah, that was a fun fight. I don't know what I want to see next from Bryce Mitchell. I definitely would like to see him, I don't know, do we want to see him fight another kind of well-rounded guy, or do we want to see him fight more of a grappler? So, I don't know. Let's take a look. So what does the featherweight rankings look like? I know Arnold Allen is a name that comes to mind right away. Brian Ortega. That's another one. Josh Emmett, Calvin Kattar. I don't really like that fight. So Bryce Mitchell is number 10 right now. And here's the thing. The rankings, yeah, whatever. They're there. But they don't always determine. Like, it's not like number 10 fights number 9 and number 8 fights number 7. Like, that's not really how it works. And Bryce Mitchell has a big enough following, fan base, that I think he could get a big fight. I think he could. I think he could get Josh Emmett if he wanted to. I think he could get Arnold Allen. I think he could get Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega might be a little bit of a reach, but think about it. Who else in the division is going to fight Brian Ortega? You know? And then if Brian Ortega beats Bryce Mitchell, I think that you could really sell that fight. I think you could. Bryce Mitchell versus Brian Ortega. Two of the best grapplers in the division. Think about it. Two of the best grapplers in the division. And then you've got Arnold Allen, who's well-rounded. He's a great striker. Lost to Max Holloway. I mean, everybody's lost to Max Holloway. That's the thing. And I've talked about this before. It's like anybody he fights is going to be somebody that Max Holloway has already destroyed. So besides Topuria, but Topuria, I think, is probably next for the title. And if he's not next for the title, he's probably going to fight Max Holloway. So, yeah, I don't think Topuria makes any sense. The rematch, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could, I don't know. I don't think Topuria is going to want to fight Bryce Mitchell again. He already beat him. He already submitted him. So, yeah, I don't think that fight would make any sense. I'm just thinking out loud right now, which is pretty much what I do on this podcast. I think Brian Ortega. I like that. And I know it's a huge jump in the rankings. I know it's huge, but featherweight, it's kind of like all of Max Holloway's sons, So, I don't know. I think that fight just, because Bryce Mitchell is a big name, I think that makes sense. I think you can sell a big fight for Bryce because of his following, because he's so outlandish, and let's talk about that. So Bryce Mitchell walked into the octagon with a Bible and started screaming. And some people, were disturbed by this. Some people loved it. I'll give you my thoughts. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was freaking awesome. I thought it was fantastic. I love it. I love it. Here's why. Even if I didn't believe in God, even if I was, against his religion or whatever, and I'm not super religious, but I do believe in God. I would consider myself Christian, or I guess, yeah, Catholic. I'm Catholic, whatever. So, if you're Catholic, you understand what I'm saying. But Bryce Mitchell walking into the octagon, holding the Bible above his head. That is one of the most epic things I've ever seen. I love it. Because to me, Bryce Mitchell is just being himself. He's standing up for what he believes in. He's using his platform to, I guess, spread his message, whatever, his message is. And then sometimes his message may be a little different. But I like it. I think it's great. And I like what he said about it. He said, the UFC allows me to be myself. And it's one of the few, probably the only sport where you really can be yourself like that. And I think that's why I love MMA, because it allows that creativity and freedom. Because, they're not just fighters, they're martial artists. And, they'll have like their own unique style, their own unique personality, their own flair. And I think that's what makes this sport unique. So I think that we should embrace that kind of thing. If somebody came into the octagon and they had, I'm trying to think of an example. I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'm sure there's been other instances of people, honoring their religion to some aspect in the octagon whether it's Christian or Muslim or whatever religion it is. I think it's cool. I like it. I think it's great. I think that we should embrace this type of, expression of their beliefs and who they are, whether it's religious or not. I think it's cool. I really like it. And yeah, I mean, there's things he says, to be fair, he thinks the earth is flat, and he thinks gravity isn't real, which, dude, one of his takedowns proves that gravity is real. He got a sick takedown in that fight. So I'm sorry, Bryce, but gravity's real. I don't agree with 90% of the things that he says, but I do like the fact that he stands up for himself. He stands up for his beliefs, and he's unapologetically himself. I love it. I love it. So yeah, do I think that Bryce Mitchell is 100% accurate on everything he says? No. I do not believe the earth is flat. That's just my philosophy. But I like it. I like Bryce Mitchell. I've always been a big fan of his. He's really, really talented too. His grappling is incredible. He's so strong. That was one thing I noticed in the Barboza fight. And that was, honestly, the Barboza fight was probably one of my favorite performances from Bryce. Even though he didn't get the finish, he didn't get the submission, just the display of beautiful grappling that he put on in that fight. I loved it. So I always love watching him fight. I love watching grapplers that are really active. He's not sitting there and laying on Dan Ige the whole time. They're in there, they're fighting. Whether they're on the ground or they're on the feet, they're fighting. And I like that about Bryce Mitchell. I really like watching him. I like his style. And yeah, I like that he's himself. So that's my thoughts on that. Bryce Mitchell, freedom. That was one of the, and you know what was funny? Michael Bisping was not feeling that. Michael Bisping was like, get out of this octagon right now. He was not feeling it. And I don't know. I felt like that was a little, I don't know. I don't know if Michael Bisping has a issue with Bryce Mitchell, but I don't know. It seemed like he was definitely not vibing with that at all. But I would have just rolled with it. I would have been like, all right, let's go. Let's all pray together. What is going on here? It was great. It was pretty hilarious. Yeah, epic moment. And he walked out to that Oliver Anthony song, which I thought was really cool. Yeah, just a character. He's just man, he's going to have a huge fan base. I mean, he's probably going to say some things that are probably going to get him in trouble, but he's going to build a huge fan. He's kind of like Sean Strickland in a way. He's kind of similar to Sean Strickland. Maybe a little bit less aggressive than Sean, but similar in that sense of they're just unapologetically themselves. I like it. But yeah. So then after that was Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson. And this was an absolute freaking clinic from Marina Rodriguez. Her Muay Thai is just incredible. Her elbows, her knees. Yeah, she's dangerous. Very dangerous. She ended up finishing the fight. Michelle Waterson was cut really bad. Her face was a mess. And she's so pretty, too. I'm like, oh, no. You don't want to mess up that model face, girl. But, yeah, I guess that's what they sign up for when they get in there. But I'm sure she'll get fixed up and she'll look probably the same as she did before. She might have some scar tissue, but I'm sure she'll still look exactly the same. The karate hottie. I love her. She's great. But, yeah, I mean, I thought this fight was going to go to decision, honestly. I didn't think that Waterson was going to get finished like that. I thought it was going to go to a decision. I thought it was going to be a clinic, but I didn't think it was going to end up like that, like a brutal TKO for Marina. And it was honestly kind of emotional to watch too, because, you know, Michelle Waterson had her kids there, and gosh, if I was a fighter, I don't know if I would want to bring my kids to a fight. Because, like, I know people do that. And I know, like, I remember Cowboy Cerrone brought his son to the fight and brought him in the octagon afterwards. I know a lot of other fighters bring their kids to the fight. I don't know how I feel about it, because I think it's cool if you win. But if you don't win, then it's like, yikes. You know, that's tough. Yeah, and her kids were like screaming. So yeah, I don't know. That's hard. I don't know if I would, if I was really confident I was going to win, I'd probably be like, okay, let's go. But even then, it's like, you never know what's going to happen in there. And even if you win, you know, you might get cut really bad. And I don't know. That's tough. It's just, yeah, I don't know as a child, if I would want to see like my parent getting the crap beat out of them on TV. I don't know. And seeing it live in person. Yeah, that's tough. And Michelle was really emotional afterwards. Yeah, I just kind of feel for her, honestly. I mean, she's a little bit older now. I think she's in her late 30s. I mean, she's still a good fighter. She's still really talented. But, you know, Marina Rodriguez, she's a killer. She's a killer. So, yeah, that was a tough fight. But Marina, she called out Tatiana Suarez, which that's a really interesting call out. Because Tatiana, she's undefeated. I'm trying to remember where she's at in the rankings. She is number 3. So Marina is number 8 right now. Tatiana's number 3. Yeah, I could see her being able to kind of skip, because I mean, I don't know a lot of people that are going to want to fight Tatiana. That's the thing. Like, she's undefeated. So, yeah, not a lot of people really wanting to call her out. And she's already beat Andrade. So that's not going to happen. She's already beat Esparza, Grasso. Yeah. So, I don't know. I like that fight. It's interesting. That's an interesting fight. I don't know who wins that. I would probably lean towards Tatiana. But, I don't know. Marina looked terrifying. So, I don't know. I hate doing predictions because it's like, you never know. You really never know. And styles make fights. That's the other thing. But yeah, that was a great performance from Marina. She just looked incredible. And then after that was Brian Battle versus AJ Fletcher. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that's hilarious. Brian, formerly Pooh Bear, now the Butcher, Battle. Yeah, this was a fun fight. So he had some adversity in the first round. He got dropped. I think it was an elbow he got hit with. And, yeah, he got dropped. Not like, it wasn't bad to the point where I thought he was like going to get finished, but it was bad enough to where I thought he lost the round and was like, okay, who's going to win this fight? You know, it made it interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I was really, really glad to see him turn that around because I really like Brian Battle. I think he's got a lot of potential as far as like being a star and just kind of building a nice fan base. And he kind of already has a little bit just with his personality. You know, he has fun in there and he's a fun fighter to watch. And that's one thing he was kind of talking about was like he might not be the best grappler, you know, pure grappling, but he's a really good MMA grappler. And I think that's really cool because we're starting to see that more with just kind of mixing up the jiu-jitsu and the wrestling with MMA, and it's more of an MMA style. It's not just pure jiu-jitsu or pure wrestling. So I thought that was kind of cool that he kind of pointed that out. But as far, I mean, and he got the submission, by the way. It was awesome. He took AJ's back and was really just, yeah, I was really impressed with just kind of his dexterity, and he kind of used his range not only on the feet but on the ground too. Just like long arms, able to kind of really wrap himself around AJ, and yeah, it was impressive. And for him to come back from getting dropped like that and then finish the fight, yeah, I mean, that was a great performance. I was really, really excited when that happened. That was awesome. Yeah, I mean, for him to get a finish after his last fight, I think the last one was the 14-second knockout, and then to get a second round finish after basically getting dropped. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And a lot of people might view that as a bad thing that he got dropped in the first round, but I honestly view it as a good thing because it shows, first of all, that he has a chin. Because remember in the Usman versus Burns fight, the first one, do you remember when Usman got dropped by Gilbert Burns and then came back and knocked Gilbert Burns out? Do you guys remember that? Because I do. And those are just things that are going to happen when you get to that elite level. When you're fighting guys, I mean, AJ Fletcher's good. And, when you get to that level and you're fighting guys that are really, really tough and, can put your lights out with one punch or one, I guess in this instance, elbow, yeah, it's just going to happen. So what's next for Bryan Battle? He's on a 2-fight win streak. He's 10-2. Huge personality. I think we should get him a good fight next. I think we need another good personality. I think we need a bigger name. And AJ Fletcher, obviously super talented fighter, but I think a bigger name would be good. I think that he's marketable, so why not make a fight that people will get excited about? I don't know. Max Griffin's one that Jonathan brought up from Fight Bananas when I was talking with them about it. A couple that came to my mind were Chaos Williams was one that kind of came to mind. He trains at Murcielago. He trains with Buckley, which actually that was another name that came to mind is Joaquin Buckley. Buckley is about to fight Alex Morono. I think the winner of that fight versus Bryan Battle, take my money. Take my money. I would love to see it. They've already talked about fighting each other, Buckley and Bryan Battle. And who knows, maybe Alex Morono wins this fight. I mean, you never know. I actually don't know who I'm going to pick on that one. I'm from St. Louis, so I kind of got to pick Buckley. But that's an interesting fight. I mean, Alex Morono is tough. Like, you can never really count him out either. So, I don't know. But Joaquin, just the work he's been putting in, he's training at Murcielago, and I know, like, Max Choriev just won his last fight in Shamrock in the regional circuit, and then Buckley obviously training with top guys there. So I think that I would lean toward Buckley in that fight. I think he's got some new tricks up his sleeve. I think that he's probably going to be even more improved than he was last time. I just have a feeling. So I don't know. I think that, Bryan Battle versus the winner of Morono versus Buckley, or somebody like Chaos Williams, Max Griffin, somebody in that kind of area in the rankings. I don't know exactly where that's at. Probably top 20s-ish, top 20, top 30s, something like that. Yeah. But I like the idea of the Morono Buckley. And I know that's a little bit of a jump for Bryan Battle in competition, but the thing is that Buckley and Bryan Battle were talking about fighting like not that long ago, like less than a year ago, maybe even less than 6 months ago. So I like it. And there's a little bit of a history there with them talking and chirping at each other. So, yeah, why not? And then after that, or before that, was Ricardo Ramos versus Charles Jourdain. Charles Jourdain got a first round guillotine, and he fought for that guillotine. He tried to get that guillotine like a bunch of different times, and then he finally got it, and it was beautiful. I thought he wasn't going to get it. I was like, why is he still trying to get this guillotine? He's not going to get it. And then he got it, and I was like, oh, I was wrong. He obviously was onto something there. So yeah, super impressive. Man, that guy, put him up against any jiu-jitsu guy, and he's just like, they're kryptonite. I swear, because his last fight with Kron Gracie absolutely demolished Kron Gracie. And then Ricardo Ramos, I mean, first round guillotine finish. Jeez. So yeah, just because you have a black belt and you're from Brazil doesn't mean you're going to get through Air Jourdain. Okay. He is seriously, it's so funny, but he's so well-rounded. That's the thing. That's why he's such a problem, because he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got great striking. He's just, yeah, I mean, he's super dangerous in every area. So he's a really tough guy to beat. Really tough guy to beat. And then kind of working our way back to the prelims. So we had a really good prelims fight. Miles Johns versus Dan Argueta. This was a fantastic fight. I thought was second place fight of the night. Lots of grappling, striking, all kinds of stuff. Dan Argueta has a chin made of freaking steel. Miles Johns looked great. He has got some power. And he throws everything into his punches, which I think is kind of fun. I like watching him fight. It's actually really fun to watch. He just looks so angry in there. I love it. It's so fun. And he's training at Marathon MMA with Garrett Armfield, who's coming off a win. So they've got some momentum going there, which that's always fun to see. And I think Trey Ogden just announced that he's fighting soon, or one of the other guys there, maybe Mike Breeden or Trey Ogden, I can't remember. One of them got a fight announced recently. So that's exciting. And then, yeah, it was a fun fight. I thought Miles Johns won just from the damage aspect of it. It seems like the judges are looking more at damage lately, at least this past year. So that's kind of what I've been looking at, when I'm kind of doing my own scorecard. But I thought Dan did a fantastic job as well. I mean, I thought it was a really close fight. It was a fun fight. So yeah, I mean, it was great. But I was glad to see Miles Johns get the win. Yeah, that was awesome. And then the fight of the night was Tim Means versus Andre Fiallo. Holy crap, this was a freaking barn burner. This was such a good fight. And I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting it to be this good of a fight, honestly. I was not expecting it. You know, Tim Means, I mean, he's like 40 years old. You know, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes these vets, when they get older, they're kind of more fun to watch. And then sometimes they get older and it's like, okay, you know, they're obviously slowing down. Tim Means isn't slowing down. He is not slowing down. That was a fun fight. That was an incredible fight. You could tell they both wanted it. And I think they were both on losing streaks. So they both were just like, you know, like really trying to get that win. And that's what happens. You know, you get two guys in there that are super hungry and you get a great fight. So yeah, the fans won that fight. But yeah, Tim Means ended up winning, which is awesome. Love to see him get a win. And then before that, Malkoun versus Brundage. This was a DQ win for Cody Brundage. So yeah, that was an interesting... Yeah, so Malkoun ended up elbowing him in the back of the head. And it looked intentional, unfortunately. Now, he probably wasn't thinking about it at the time. He was probably, like, after the fact was like, oh, why did I just do that? Kind of like the Piotr Jan situation. Like, oh, oopsies, you know, oopsie daisy. But yeah, and then Brundage, you know, was kind of sitting there for a while and then decided not to continue. And I don't blame him. He was going to lose the fight. So yeah, why would you continue and get beat up even more? To me, that would make zero sense. So even if he would have gotten a no contest on that one, I still think that would have been the right decision to not continue. Because, yeah, why take more damage when you can just get out of the fight now, either take the win the free win or a no contest, and then you don't have a loss. You don't take any more damage. You're safe, because Malkoun was winning that fight. He was dominating that fight. So, yeah, unfortunate ending to that one, especially since Malkoun was winning the fight. I think a no contest probably would have made more sense, but you know what? I mean, that's just what happens when you throw an illegal strike like that. I mean, we saw it in the Piotr Jan fight. That's how Aljamain ended up winning the title, his first title fight. So, yeah, I think that Brundage made the right choice, but yeah, very unfortunate. But I guess, yeah, take the free win. I don't know. And then before that was Muhammad Usman versus Jake Collier. And yeah, Jake got eye poked in that fight. I don't know how I feel about that fight. I wasn't I was impressed with Usman in some ways, but I wasn't as impressed with him as I was hoping to be. You know what I mean? Because he's Kamaru Usman's brother. I think he's his brother. And living up to that family name, you kind of expect a lot. And he doesn't have near the experience as Kamaru, but still, I was expecting a little bit more, I don't know. And I think the eye poke, honestly, there should have been a point taken for that, for sure. I 100% would have been okay with them taking a point for that eye poke. That was a bad eye poke. And honestly, probably changed the whole trajectory of the fight. It's just frustrating. In my opinion on eye pokes, I've decided that I think if it's a legit eye poke, like if they replay it and they see that it's a legit eye poke, I think a point should be taken. I mean, because otherwise people are just going to keep doing it. That's the thing, because they know they can get away with it at least once, as long as it's not like a really bad eye poke, like Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad type eye poke. But I don't know. I mean, look at how many fighters like Stipe. Look how many fighters have been like permanently damaged from eye pokes. It's just, yeah, I think it's got to stop. Because I do think that changed the outcome of the fight. Not that Collier would have won. I don't know. Actually, maybe he would have. He looked pretty good the first round. So, I don't know. It is what it is. But yeah, wasn't as impressed with Muhammad Usman as I expected to be. It is what it is, though. And then the fight before that was Hannah Goldie. What was her opponent? Was Suzuki, I think was her name. I can't remember. Why am I blanking on her name? Mizuki, not Suzuki. Oh my God. Suzuki is the car brand. Jeez. Brie, get it together. This was kind of a close fight. It wasn't like a whole lot going on. I mean, they were throwing strikes, there was volume, but there wasn't a whole lot of like big moments to me in this fight for either of them. I thought Mizuki obviously won, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a blowout. Hannah Goldie didn't get beat up, So, and man, she's freaking jacked. Like, holy crap. I want to know what kind of workout routines she does, because she's freaking... She is jacked. She's shredded. But, yeah, that was a fun fight. I mean, she's huge for strawweight. Jeez. I couldn't believe it. I saw her, I'm like, that's strawweight? Like, she's huge. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought they both looked good. I thought it was a fun competitive fight, but not really like a whole lot to talk about there. So, and then the fight before that, I didn't get to watch that fight. I missed it because I didn't realize that the fights had started yet, and I was busy. So I hurried up and turned the TV on right on time for Hannah Goldie versus Mizuki. And yeah. But anyways, that's the whole card. So, yep. Fun fights. I loved it. In the Bryce Mitchell thing, Brian Battle, he had some controversy in the prelims. It was fun. It's everything I could ask for out of a main event or out of a fight night, except the main event was unfortunately not a happy ending, but onward. Let's take a look at the next fight night coming up, which is Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green, which I'm super, super excited for. Obviously, the main event, Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. I am going with Grant Dawson on that one. I think he's going to win that fight. His wrestling is absolutely incredible. Yeah. I really think he's going to win that fight. But you never know. Bobby Green, he's a tricky guy to fight. So it'll be interesting to see. It's a very interesting matchup. Very interesting. I didn't see that coming. Did not see that coming. But speaking of Joaquin Buckley and Alex Morono, guess who's fighting on this card? Alex Morono versus Joaquin Buckley. And that is going to be right before the co-main event, which is Joe Pyfer versus Abdul Al-Hassan. And Joe Pyfer, he looked really good in his last fight, so I'm excited to see him get back in there. Drew Dober versus Ricky Glenn. Always love to see a Drew Dober fight. Oh my gosh, he's one of the best fighters to watch. Just so much fun to watch. He has fun in there. He puts on entertaining fights. Obviously, last fight didn't go his way, but hopefully he can turn it around on this one because you always got to root for Drew Dober. Love watching him fight. And then Philip Lins versus Ian Cutelaba. That is going to be an interesting fight. Alex Hernandez versus Bill Algeo. That's a fun one. Fun little featherweight bout. And then Diana Belbita versus Carolina Kowal. I can never remember how to pronounce her name. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to the whole country of Poland for that. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I'm definitely going to butcher it. But yeah. Women's strawweight, Carolina. Chris Gutierrez versus Montel Jackson. Chris Gutierrez has some of the nastiest leg kicks I've ever seen in my life. That'll be fun. Yeah. There's some fun fights on this card. I'm excited. And that's a fight night. And then, of course, after that, we've got Islam Makhachev versus Oliveira kind of coming up. Yusuf versus Barboza, October 14th. Yeah, fun stuff. Let's take a look at some fight announcements, MMA news. What's going on with the Logan Paul, Dylan Dennis thing? I don't know what's going on with that. Are they okay? Tell me in the comments what you think about Dylan Dennis versus Logan Paul. Do you think Dylan Dennis is going to show up? I don't think this fight is even going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think. And here's the thing. Dylan Dennis, how is he going to beat Logan Paul in boxing? If it was MMA, I'm taking Dylan Dennis all day, every day. But in boxing, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think that Dylan Dennis can outbox Logan Paul. And the thing is all the trash that he's talking, and he's now like pretty much in legal trouble at this point. Or I guess Logan Paul's fiance and Logan Paul are suing Dylan Dennis, understandably. I mean, I think he crossed the line. I really think he crossed the line. I don't know. I'm not a fan of Dylan Dennis at all. And I'm not really a big Logan Paul fan either, but if I have to pick one on this situation, I'm going with Logan Paul because, yeah, I just think it's kind of disgusting what Dylan Dennis has done. And it's like, yeah, you can say what you want about Logan Paul's fiance and all this stuff, but really it's none of our business. So, that's their relationship. I don't know. I think bringing somebody's fiance, wife, family, I think it's a little too far. A little too far. I mean, it's one thing to be like, oh, your wife's ugly, or like, saying something like that in like a trash talk or whatever. But to go to the lengths that Dylan Dennis has gone to exploit Logan Paul's fiance, I mean, if he doesn't go in there and knock Logan Paul out in the first round, he's going to look like the biggest idiot on the face of the earth, especially if he doesn't show up. If Dylan Dennis doesn't show up, I don't want to hear another word from him about fighting ever again. Like, seriously. And it kind of makes me wonder, is Dylan Dennis just doing this as like a publicity stunt? Is he just trying to stay relevant? Is he trying to get attention? Is he even going to fight Logan Paul? Like, is this going to happen? Mike Perry, he's waiting in the wings, hoping that Dylan Dennis doesn't show up so he can fight Logan Paul. And honestly, yeah, I've said this before. If Logan Paul has to fight Mike Perry, that is going to be a rough night for him. Yeah, he better really hope that Dylan Dennis shows up. But honestly, I'm kind of wondering what Dylan Dennis' excuse is going to be for pulling out of the fight. Because I know it's going to happen. I know he's going to pull out of the fight for sure. Like, I don't think this fight's going to happen. I don't know. I'll be shocked. If Dylan Dennis, I won't believe it until Dylan Dennis is walking into the ring. And at that point, then I will believe that the fight's going to happen. Until then, this is all just a show. It's a whole show. It's almost like reality TV at this point, It just feels silly. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't like it. It feels very fake. It feels fabricated. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, and Mike Perry doesn't know what's going on either. He was talking with Jonathan at Gamrot after the fights, or I think after the fights or before the fights. And he was like, I'll fight both of them at the same time. And honestly, put Mike Perry against Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul at the same time. I'm taking Mike Perry. I'm taking Mike Perry all day. No, like, you guys don't understand. Mike Perry's a freaking dog. If Logan Paul fights Mike Perry, there's not going to be anything Logan Paul is going to be able to do to him. I mean, honestly, Logan Paul doesn't even technically have a professional win in boxing. All of his wins have been exhibition fights. So, and you're talking about a bare knuckle boxer. Mike Perry is a bare knuckle boxer, guys. And he was a former MMA fighter who was in the UFC and had some impressive wins in the UFC and is now an undefeated bare knuckle boxer. Yeah, no, Logan Paul is doing nothing to him, and Dylan Dennis either. But I think Dylan Dennis is the one that's going to drop out. I think he's going to find some way to pull out of that fight. But anyways, another fight that got announced: Yuri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira. That's exciting. And I did a poll on Instagram. I wonder if it's still up. I'm going to check. But I did a poll on Instagram to see what people think. 88% of people think Pereira is going to win, and 12% of people think Prochazka is going to win. I don't think people are giving Yuri enough credit. Yuri's dangerous. Yuri is a scary guy. But so is Pereira. That's the thing. So, I don't know, but let's get into some fan questions. Yeah, let me know in the comments who you think wins that fight, Alex Pereira or Yuri Prochazka. I'd probably lean toward Alex Pereira, but I don't think it's... I don't know. I think it's going to be closer than people think. I don't think Pereira is just going to go in there and knock him out right away. Like, I think it's going to be... I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting fight. Fan questions. What do we got here? What we got going on? Oh, they're on Facebook, not on Instagram. Duh. That would explain why I can't find them. Okay. First question. With the addition of Chris Lieben, and this is from Dawson Hewell. Thank you, Dawson, for the great question. With the addition of Chris Lieben as a judge, should more fighters judge? Who would you pick? I love the idea of fighters judging. I love it as long as they don't have a bunch of ties to like a lot of fighters. Like if they're like really good friends with a lot of fighters, I think that could be a problem. That's the only thing I worry about, is like having a little bit of bias, or if it's like their teammate. So I think as long as nobody on the card is like a teammate or former teammate of theirs or like a close friend of theirs, then I think it's okay. Cause I do worry a little bit about the bias, but I think the UFC and the commission is probably ahead of that. They're probably already aware of that possibility. So I wouldn't think that would be a problem. But yeah, I love the idea of fighters judging, because who knows the fight game better than fighters? Obviously, they know it, and they know what's going on in there better than a lot of the judges probably do. I like the idea of Chris Lieben. That's awesome. I'm so excited that he, is starting to be a judge. I think that's really cool. Who would I pick as a judge? There's a name that comes to mind immediately. And it's Jens Pulver. I would love to see Jens Pulver not only judging, I would like to see him do commentary. I love Jens Pulver. I think he's just honestly one of the coolest guys in MMA. Like just what he's accomplished and what he's done, and like his whole attitude about it, and just like his whole Hall of Fame speech was amazing. I'm a huge Jens Pulver fan. His season of The Ultimate Fighter was great. And yeah, I just think that out of anybody in the UFC that's been in the UFC, I think a Hall of Famer is a good choice as a judge. And also somebody like Jens Pulver, I think would be very honest and would do a really good job judging. I think he would really put a lot of energy, effort into it. And he's still involved with the UFC. He does the UFC's Twitch stream. And he's obviously a legend. So that's the first name that immediately came to mind when I saw that question, was Jens Pulver. Yeah, I would love to see Jens Pulver judging, commentary, post-fight breakdown, anything. That guy is awesome. So yeah, he's one of my favorite fighters of all time. He's just awesome. And then what's the next question? Let me see here. Do you think they should do more title fight nights? I don't know. I do like the idea of the title fights being reserved for pay-per-views, but I guess it depends on the title. If it's, I hate to say flyweight, because flyweight right now is actually a really great division, but in the past, it wasn't. There wasn't a ton of competition at flyweight, so flyweight fight for a fight night made sense. I think now they've kind of earned the pay-per-view spot. But, I mean, Shevchenko versus Grasso was not a pay-per-view, but it was Noche UFC. It was a very special event, so it almost felt like a pay-per-view. I don't know. I think I like the idea of keeping those fight night cards to non-title fights, in my opinion. I think there's just something special about a title fight in a pay-per-view, and I actually would like to see more title fights in pay-per-views. Like I don't know. Like sometimes, people complain if a women's fight is main event on a pay-per-view, and it's like, dude, one of the biggest pay-per-views of all time was a female fight. So, yeah, people are just dumb. But anyways, yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. I'm not mad about it if they do a title fight on a fight night, but I think there's plenty of fights that we don't need to do that. Like, I think there's too many fights, actually. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe like a BMF title fight on a fight night. I like that idea. But, yeah, I think it depends on the division, too. Like, let's say Sean Strickland and Duplessis fight each other. I think that could be a fight night. I mean, I guess maybe not, because Strickland, I think, will probably figure out a way to sell that fight because he's just a talker, which I love about Strickland. But at the same time, I don't know. That's just not really like a big... That fight, to me, doesn't sell pay-per-views. Like, that to me would probably need to be a co-main, I would think. I don't know how I feel about that fight. I definitely think Sean Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev, that could be a main event pay-per-view title fight. Like, there's different matchups in middleweight that I don't know how they would be able to sell it as like the main event on a title fight. I mean, I guess they could, especially with Sean, the way that he, like I said, he's a talker. So I don't know. And then the other question was, do you think that Israel Adesanya should be held accountable? Oh, this question was from Joshua Andrews, by the way. Do you think that Israel Adesanya should be held accountable for his actions outside of the octagon? He got a DUI. That's what he's referring to. The answer is no, because there have been plenty of other fighters that have done the same thing and nothing happened to them. So, no. I think Jeff Neal had a DUI. John Jones, obviously. Now Adesanya. Tony Ferguson had a DUI like less than a year ago. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think that if it's a continued problem, and if it's like, I don't know, it does kind of make you wonder though, like, where is Israel Adesanya's head at? You know, because that DUI was in August, and he's supposed to be training for a title fight. So it's like, what is he doing? Why is he going out and getting drunk and driving when he's supposed to be training for a title fight? It just makes me wonder, like, how motivated was Adesanya for that fight? Or where was his head at? You know? And yeah, it definitely makes you wonder. Is this like the beginning of the decline of Adesanya? I don't know. I hope not, because I really like Adesanya. I'm a huge Adesanya fan. But it does make you wonder, like, where's his head at? Why is he going out and even drinking at all when he's training for a time? I mean, you're supposed to be at the elite level. And, you know, I mean, I remember when Paulo Costa was drinking his wine before the fight with Adesanya. So it's like, yeah, I mean, there's just certain things that I feel like as a champion, you know, you maybe shouldn't do. But at the same time, John Jones did all that stuff and worse things and was still winning fights. So I don't know. If you're winning fights, I think it's do whatever you want. As long as you're not hurting people, and as long as you're not, well, if you're getting DUIs, maybe don't do that. But if you're going out partying, having a good time, as long as you're being safe and you're not putting anybody in danger, then I think it's okay. But yeah, I think the fact that Izzy lost the fight, that definitely doesn't help his case for sure. But I don't think that the UFC or Dana is going to punish him for it, just because that would be a little unfair considering the other fighters. And there's way more fighters besides just Jeff Neal and Tony and the ones I named. There's more than that have gotten DWIs and DUIs, or other legal issues. So yeah, I mean, I think that I don't think he's going to be affected really by the UFC. I think it's more really what is going on with him internally, I think, is a bigger question. And how is he going to bounce back from this? Not only losing a fight, but now in legal trouble. Like, it's just not looking good for Izzy right now, unfortunately. So Yeah, it is a little concerning. I'm not gonna lie. So hopefully he can turn it around. But anyways, I am going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thank you guys for submitting your questions. Thank you for just being so interactive, engaging with me, talking with me. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Leave your questions in the comments. Love chatting with you guys. It's so much fun. Of course, I always love talking about MMA, so feel free to chime in with any of your thoughts, comments, questions, all that good stuff. I really appreciate all of your support. I appreciate you listening today or watching, however you consume this. And I will see you guys next week. You know what I'm saying? Bye, guys.
Going up, don't look down.